Welcome to Off the Cuff. I'm your host, Sean Hancock. This is the podcast where we examine those moments in our lives where things didn't go where we planned, so we've had to respond in the moment off the cuff. In this episode, we're talking with David Magidoff. He stars in Showtime's highest-rated series of all time, DEXTER: New Blood. As overly eager Officer Terry Reid, his recent credits include American Crime Story, Impeachment, and reoccurring as Nicky Brooks on Apple TV Plus's Emmy-nominated and SAG Award-winning The Morning Show. Let's dive in as David and I talk about fatherhood, setting good boundaries, and unexpected moments that change the course of our lives. All right, you guys, welcome back to Off the Cuff. I can't tell you how excited I am to have this guest on this show.
So don't.
So I'm not going to tell you.
Don't tell them. You can't. So then there shouldn't be an introduction. And just let's start talking. They don't need
the guy who doesn't need an introduction, and probably who has impacted my life more than any other human, David Magidoff. Thanks for joining me. How are you, my friend?
Thanks for having me, Sean. I'm great.
Good.
If I'm talking to you, that's a good thing. So that means I'm doing well. Usually I'm not doing badly if I'm talking to you, which also might mean I have vulnerability issues with you. So we can talk about that as well. Yeah.
Fantastic. Cool. Mm-hmm. Well, David, one of the reasons I wanted to get you on the podcast is because a couple of things. One, you're an actor, you're an improviser, and you're now a dad. Right. And I'm curious, have you noticed how things have changed for you in your professional career with being a dad? Is there any big shifts that you've noticed at all?
Yeah, I'm more worried now. I just can't lie about that. You know, there's one thing when you're a bachelor and if you don't have a lot of money, then that's fine because you can get through it because you can eat top ramen or not. And then if you have a girlfriend, then you're like, well, you know, she's got a job too, so that's okay. Right. And then that becomes your wife. You're like, okay, well, I'm responsible for her. But then you get a house and then you have this thing called a mortgage. But then now you have a kid on a house. And now you also have a cat. So moral of the story is, while the phrase "the baby brings the bread" definitely has shown its light around some areas, which is really cool, it's like, oh my gosh, like I'm responsible for just so many more humans and animals than I ever expected to be. And that's only one kid. I'm not even like a Duggar or anything, or even you with 2 kids. That's crazy. Why are you doing a podcast? This is the last thing you should be doing.
Yeah.
You and I should be out there hustling and making in the salt mines, but no, we're just casual on a podcast at 11 a.m. Pacific time today. So.
That's right. You're welcome. Mm-hmm. No, there's a reason. There's a reason for a podcast, and my life changed listening to a podcast. I was listening to this podcast by this guy named Ed Milet, and it was a 48-minute podcast. And I applied some of the wisdom that I captured from that podcast and made my first 6 figures in 3 months because of that one podcast.
Wow.
You know, so I think that if you have the ability to speak and communicate where people will hear you, you can fast track some of the speed bumps in life and get them places faster. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. David, I'd love to tell a story, if that's okay, that you impacted me, that it popped up just this last weekend. So just to frame the story, I just got back from Utah where I recorded some comedy specials. And I'm driving in this car and I'm reflecting on my friend of mine who was standing next to me, ends up introducing himself to his comedy special. And we're driving on the road, and he says, Sean, no one has impacted my life more than you. And you, David, popped into my head, because I wouldn't be sitting having that conversation in the car ride with him had I not met David Magidoff. Because there was a moment in my life where you had this gig come up where you're traveling to Switzerland, and then and you're doing this incredible tour, and then a gig for Disney popped up, and that was more bread kind of a deal, you know what I'm saying? And you basically, someone asked you, the director asked you, like, well, who could go in your spot? And you gave him 2 names, and I happened to be the guy that got to go. And because of that, I end up meeting my wife in Spain. And because of that, you know what I mean? Like it was the domino effect. My encounter with you was a domino effect in my life. And I'm just curious, like, how many people that you maybe don't even know that you've tipped the domino over in other people's lives that rewrote their life story for them. And
what I love, Sean, you know, you share with me a lot, and I mean that in a really great way, actually, because I really, you know, one of the things I think that connect us is that we are thoughtful men, meaning you and I look back a lot on like some really cool moments, and which I think is what's so great about this podcast, because this podcast is looking back on, you know, you're talking about, you know, off the cuff and those improv moments in life where you look back on it, you're like, oh yeah, I made the best out of something kind of weird. But in the moment, like, you know, I wanted to travel and I couldn't. And so I, you know, again, it was a good problem, but it was still a problem. And then you were able to go, and that's amazing. And I love that. Those are stories, you know, those are stories worth telling. And you and I both have a real affinity to look back and be thoughtful and these stories worth telling, because that's what life's about. At least it's what you and I feel life's about.
Sure.
Not everyone feels that way, but I think enough people do, which is why television and film is so successful, is because it's just all stories. It's all, but stories are when things that are different happen.
Yeah.
That's what makes it a story. No one's interested in, when I always tell people, like, on your wedding day, I go, I hope something bad or weird or stupid happens, because you're not going to tell the story of, or you can tell this story, but no one cares. If you say, how was your wedding? And you respond with, it went great. Everyone ate well. Everyone danced well. It was a really beautiful day. No one's interested in that story.
Right. Yeah.
They're not. They're really not. They glaze their eyes over. They're smiling. They're not actually interested, really. They're glad for you. It's pleasant. What they want to hear, they don't know it. You and I don't know it, but we know it. What you want to hear is, yeah, and then, like, my uncle, like, got lost. Like, he was there and then he was gone, and we all had to, like, stop the wedding and look for him. But then we found him. You want it to end well, of course, but, like, those are the things that you want, or you want to be like, oh my gosh, and then all of a sudden, like, some song came on the dance floor and it was just like, you know, 100 million cuss words, and like your grandma looked at you and was like, what's going on? And it's like, oh, that's just, you want those like record scratching moments, because those are interesting. Those break up the day, you know. And I've been a part of weddings where I've been the good reason and the bad reason for the wedding, you know. And that's a podcast for another day called Wedding Crashers. But moral of the story is, no one's interested in how was your morning. Oh, I woke up, went to the bathroom, I had a bagel, and then I brushed my teeth and I got ready for the day. No one wants to hear that. They want to hear something different happened. They want to hear that you got bit by a radioactive spider. You know what I mean? That's what they want to hear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Would you agree with, like, the worst moments in life are like the gateway for some of the greatest opportunities? Clearly, they're for stories. The greatest stories are usually the tragedies. Some of the worst things that happen are the best stories. Would you also agree with they're also moments for greatness?
It depends on a few things. Sometimes a lot of times, and I think you'd agree, it's our perspective on them. A lot of times we think that it's going to be outside forces changing the way, like, that thing happened, It's their fault. And now I'm clearly this is the only way this story could go.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times we have more control over the direction of our lives in a good way than I think we give ourselves credit to. I think that's why there's some people out there who have our victim mindset. And go, well, this happened to me because this always happens to me.
Right.
Oh, well. And guess how that story is going to end. Like if I got fired from a job and I'm a victim mindset, oh, well, trust me, that type of a person just doesn't get up and go. That's not the type of personality that, but if you're the type of person who gets fired, like my friend the other day just got fired. There's giant Disney layoffs happening. And he's a really bigwig person at Disney. And he was a VP in some area. I'll leave it be at that. And he got let go. And he's, getting paid out for the year. And that's amazing because he was a VP. He's like a great severance package.
Sure.
But he's a super charming, he's a Enneagram 3 wing 2, just like you, Sean. And he's like got a million contacts. And he's like, look, it sucks. I was hoping to be here for a long time. And I know a lot of people. And I'm going to get on my feet. And I'm going to find another cool job.
Right.
That's up to you, the person.
That's right.
And he's making that happen. Like, I'll do I think this is a nice segue. You can tell me if it's not.
Yeah.
I'll do into when I was on the morning show, the Apple show, I booked a recurring gig. And so essentially, in my mind, I was going to be on that show as long as that show was going to be on. I was a part of my character was a part of, the writing producer staff in the fictional world of, Reese Witherspoon, Jennifer Aniston's, and Mark Duplass's morning show. And I was excited. And I was very thrilled and working with these great people and however many episodes in. And then my agent calls me and says, there's some good news and some bad news. The good news is you have a really great scene that you're about to do. And I said, that's awesome. He said, the bad news is your character just got fired. It was like, oh, that really sucks.
Right.
And I was really, really sad because I was really, really enjoying the gig.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I had no control over it. My brain tried to figure out if I could talk to someone, and it just immediately was like, no, of course not. Like, this has been decided. I'm not, a producer on the show. I'm an actor, and I got lucky to be on it. And unfortunately, my character got fired as part of a plot line, and what can you do?
Right.
And that sucks. And then I even got to go back for an episode later that season where it was a flashback, and it's just weird. It's a weird vibe in a room because everyone's like, I know he's gone. Everyone was cool, but it was just, you could tell it's like, we're all here and now David's gone. It's like a weird thing, it's just, it's like a family member in a weird way. But everyone was cool. I did it, went home, moved on with life. And I was like, really bummed, Yeah. But then I ended up booking DEXTER, and I would not have been able to do, and it was recurring, it was all episodes, and I would not have been able to do DEXTER and go to Boston for 6 months and meet some of the greatest people and have another great experience, and still connected with a lot of these people this very day. And it was a more high profile gig. It was a better role. It was a great experience. I got to travel, and it was great.
Yeah.
More money even. And if I was on the morning show, I would not have been able to do that gig. And that gig was a better gig than the morning show gig. And, God's looking out for us. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, there's just so many things. Did I know that was coming down the pipe? No. But you just keep a positive spirit is the idea. You and I keep positive spirits. And I wish that upon anyone listening to this is like,
that's right.
Keep a positive spirit. Know that, if you feel worthy of good to come down the pipe, then good will come to you. And be open to surprises and be open to things, because, even when you see something or get something good, you don't know how long that will last, or if or something bad and it'll turn into good forever. We just don't have the control we think we have. And I think it's really empowering and charming to let yourself go on some of these things. Not that it's easy, but it's the only way to go. Otherwise, you're just going to drive yourself mad. So just be open to it. So
that's right.
Be
I
thankful.
love that.
Be really thankful, which I've been very, very thankful.
I love that. It reminds me of everything's a gift if you treat it like one. Where and I think that you and maybe actors in general have had more opportunity to practice resilience and practice like, I've got to be ready for another great opportunity to come down the pipe. Yeah. Or if you get in your head about it, you're the other person from that victim mentality that you were talking about earlier, where you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like, well, this is just going to, it's only going to be good for a little bit. And then, that kind of a thing.
This is my story. Here it goes again. Yeah.
That's right.
No, I don't know. I mean, I know I can speak it on this podcast because I know where, you and I have similar spiritual backgrounds in that. Like, there are days where I'm like, God, why is this not going the way I want it to go? And I'm like, well, just look at every story you've ever read in the Bible and just then shut up. Meaning, just it gets reminded, like, Moses did all his major work at 80 years old. Joseph, no one, he didn't want to go through what he went through and get thrown into a bag and out into the desert. I mean, tell me one God story where like they were comfortable and it all worked out from beginning to end. It's like, that's just not the God that you and I know. So it's like, if you genuinely look at like the stories that you like the most on earth today in 2023 from people that inspire you, as well as actual God stories from like biblical times, what story is usually like they were born, they had it all going for them, and then it kept going for them. They had no struggle, and they died with everyone around them happily and peace. It's like, that's just not really how it goes, and not necessarily a bad way, because it doesn't make for an interesting story either. So it's like, you don't have to have an interesting story, but I don't think you're going to have an interesting life. And I think we all, it's nice to have your life go up and to the right as much as you can, but it does. It's just going to have a lot of this in the meantime. Right. Yeah. If you are open to, that some chapters in the book of life of your life are going to be a little funky, but like in the great story, like when they hold the book of Sean Hancock and they hold the book of David Magidoff, I want it to be a bit of a page turner. And unfortunately, if it's a page turner, then there's ups and downs, baby. It's going to go down. And if we're the heroes of our stories, then the hero has to have a moment or two that we don't enjoy. But hey, can we have the resilience? Can we, like you said, actors I think have a lot of resilience because they've just been through it. At least. So when my friend got fired, it's like, I'm like, this is what I do all the time. Like every year is like what will come year. Right. At the beginning of last year, I was like looking to some of my friends who had corporate jobs, and I was like, I might need a job. Can you like help me out? Like, just the beginning of the year was really quiet. And then it became, through a few gigs, like my most successful year of all. So you just never know. Yeah. And a day can change anything. It's really a wacky time. And I think it's like what we do with improv. It's just how we respond to it.
I love that. Yeah. It's how we respond. And I hope those of you who are listening to this right now, I hope this lands well for you, that it's like God is after a good story. So just know that your story, it's not over yet, for one. And it's the low points that's actually the place to get excited, because good stuff's on its way. Because all things happen for good in the end. If it's not good yet, it's not the end. So
even the stock market, like when you're like, I get it. I never get too, I mean, this isn't trying to, I don't get too excited when it's good and bad when it's bad. But like, when things go low, that's when you buy. When things are high, that's when you sell. So meaning like it's never fun to buy when things are low. But if you, I remember like when I first was told that, it felt weird because you have way more want to click buying on a share of anything when it's going up. But you're now buying at an all-time high. Not to get too financially speaking, but like that's not good because it's going to probably go down soon. And then you're going to be like, man, now it's only going down. But if you can get into the mentality of when things are dark and red and the stock is at the lowest it can be, like that's when you buy. Like, if only I could go back to Chipotle. Chipotle had that big Ebola scare or whatever, like maybe it was 6-7 years ago, and the stock just tanked. And now it's like, this is the craziest thing you'll ever hear because I think I always surprise people when I tell people this because you're like, it's Chipotle, whatever, I don't know. A share of Chipotle stock is $2,000.
That's wild.
So if you just know that it's just a moment in time that they got Ebola, that stinks. No one wants, or whatever it is. It might not have been Ebola. I apologize. Some sort of bad
Ebola,
thing.
Yeah, it was like
maybe salmonella. Something not good. Something not good. You don't want to eat it. Whatever it was.
Apology in advance to
Chipotle. Dang, it's your sponsor. As he's scarfing down a burrito. Oh my gosh.
Is his face falling off?
Even Volkswagen, right? Volkswagen was had a huge downturn as a brand, like what was it, 3 years ago? Like again, some car issues or whatever. And so like no one was buying Volkswagens. It's like, do you believe in the grand? That's the thing. If you believe in the bigger story of Chipotle and the bigger story of Volkswagen, these are giant legacy brands that are going to do well over time, and these are little blips.
Yeah.
If you were smart, and it's scary, and I didn't do it because I'm not smart, I guess. But it's scary because it's scary to buy something when it's tanking.
Yeah.
Even if it's for because you don't know if it's going to be a forever thing.
Yeah.
But there are people who are smart who are like, Chipotle's been around for a long enough time. I'm going to buy tons of shares and it's going to all go up, you know? So,
David, this is brilliant stuff. I know you're talking about stuff like this is brilliant because
this is very weird.
No, it's good.
A really weird.
Well,
tangent.
I'm a connector, as you know, and I'm thinking about how this applies in the personal as well. And I think some people, their stock is low, like they took a hit. They had a scare, and just a reminder to invest in yourself, right? To not let yourself be like, this is where I'm bailing on my own stock. Does that make sense? Like double down on you, on your family life, that kind of a thing. So it's something
investing in yourself is a great term. Right. I think sometimes I'll sit with my therapist. I do a lot of therapy just for more talking because clearly you all know me enough now that I talk a lot. So that just helps me process. My wife is someone who does not need to talk it out. She just needs to think it out or write it out. But talking it out doesn't really help her. Me thinking, writing doesn't help so much. Talking it out is where I get all my ideas. And so I
so your therapist gets to hear all of your great ideas.
He gets to hear everything.
He's like, I want to steal that, David. I want to steal that show concept. I'm just teasing.
No, he's in his 70s, so he's towards the end of life. He doesn't need my ideas.
He's 10 years away from Moses.
There you go. He's 10 years away from doing the greatest thing, from delivering.
That's right.
Delivering people out of slavery in Colorado, because that's where he zooms from. So was I telling him? I'll just say something sometimes where I'll be like, I have to spend money on this or that. He's like, no, you're investing. He has to remind me that. He's like, you're investing in yourself. You're investing. Because it's true. It's just about every great business is a great business because they invest in themselves. And if we look at ourselves as personal businesses, it's our lives.
Yeah.
It's investing in our time, investing in our family, investing in our marriage, investing, So when I'm doing something that maybe is causing a little bit of strife or pain or whatever it is, and it's like, no. It's actually an investment in myself. It's an investing. And it's true. It's true. It's 100% true. And it is not just, it's like when people add on to their house, like you and I own houses. It's like if we add a bathroom on our houses, is one way to look at it, that we're spending let's just make up a number, $20,000 on building a bathroom. And you can be like, I just lost $20,000. Or you can say, I just added value to my house by spending $20,000, and it's now going to be worth an extra $50,000.
Right.
And on top of it, I get to poo and pee when my child is pooing and peeing in a different room. We all really win here.
It's luxury. That's a luxury toilet.
That's an investment.
That's a sound bit that I think we can use. That's a luxury toilet.
I think that's just the spinoff podcast.
I got a question for you, since you're talking about like family life. If you wouldn't mind, I feel like I remember like before, like when I was younger in life and I needed help figuring stuff out, you seem to be the guy who is further down the road of figuring things out than any of our other friends. And if you wouldn't mind sharing like maybe a little bit of, I want to say secret, maybe it's not a secret to you because it's how you roll, but like you seem to have margin, or you protected your time. Like even, I remember taking a trip with you to Northern California and you're like, hey, just give me a couple of minutes. I got to get back to these emails. Like, and so you sat in a car in like the air conditioning, just getting back to whether it's your agent or whatever. And me at the time, I was like, dude, I'm here in the moment. I'm doing stuff with Ever. Like the emails will wait, like you seem to protect certain moments or time. Like your cell phone doesn't even enter into a restaurant. It doesn't even go, you know what I mean? Like this is, you live by principles and rules. I'm just curious, now that you are a dad, has that gotten stronger? What are some of the moments that you're like, these are things I must protect?
I'm still figuring, thanks for all that, by the way. It is more of a natural inclination towards things, I think. I didn't, maybe my mom taught me some of that stuff. And just, I'm someone who just likes to take care of the thing in the moment, typically, and that's just each person's different, Myers-Briggs talk, I'm a J, and Enneagram talk, I'm a 2. So like, I really am like take care of what's in the moment kind of planner person. Like I plan and I'm like, let's get it done. Like I was at my friend's house 2 days ago and I saw on his phone, he had his email inbox was like 1,200 emails, and my brain just melted because I have all emails checked plus, and only 2 of them are starred. I have 2 voiceover auditions that I need to do later today. And I'm still like biting at the bit to be like, I have to do those auditions. Like I want to unstar those things so quick. But,
nice. So yeah, you're inbox 0 day on the daily, right?
On the daily. That's my goal, but that's me. And everyone's different. And it's not, I don't know how to teach that. I think that literally is just like, not OCD. It's just, I like a clean inbox. So there's a way to teach that, but I can't. That's just how I'm built. That being said, I do try to turn my phone on airplane mode often. I saw someone at the bottom of their email the other day that said, like a signature, he said, my hours don't have to be your hours. Like, so please, like, I forgot how he wrote it. But something like my hours aren't your hours. Like, please, do go about your business or whatever. And I just love sort of the permission for like, this is what I do. This could be what you do. Either way, this is who I am. And I don't know. It felt very, I might steal it kind of thing. I have to look at it against the wording. But to answer your question a little more specifically, as a dad right now, I'm still figuring that out because I've only been a dad for about 7 months today is when she was born. And it's been, speaking of improv, we don't have to go too into it, but like it started out really difficult. She was born a month early, my daughter Lucy, and we had complications and she was in the NICU for 20 days and not what we expected. Definitely, we learned off the cuff. But now she's doing a lot better and she's a lot more stable and she's awesome and cute as a button and sleeping through the night. And now she's teething like a good old fashioned normal kiddo. And she's awesome. She's doing great, period. Like she looks great. She is great. It took a bit to get there and I'm sure we're going to have plenty of stumbles along the way as all parents do, but I think we're finally, seeing a lot of positive, which is great. So now I'm finally kind of like being able to do a podcast even now and just like have some sleep. I'm now starting to figure out, all right, because my phone now, I have to check her on her video, on her crib cam and stuff. So like I'm using my phone a little more often, so it's kind of pulling me in and distracting me more. So now my current, like in the moment concern / issue / troubleshoot is, all right, I'm using my phone a little more than I normally like, and a phone is a typical time sucker, time waster for me and all of us. So how do I be a dad on the phone and also have moments where I go, you know what? I'm going to turn my phone off now. There was a time where you didn't have to have your phone on for decades and decades, not that long ago, and the kid lived and parents were unavailable. And one parent was taking care of them for an afternoon or whatever it was, and it's going to be okay. My phone is off. And so this is what I'm trying to figure out right now, Sean, which is how do I set that time aside? I used to always be someone who was really good about my phone was like in the other room. Like I had like a old burner phone I'd use to wake me up in the morning, and my actual phone was somewhere else, so that I couldn't just turn over in the morning and the first thing I did was open my phone. But now the kiddo is in the other room and I have my phone. That's where I have the video to check her out. So now I'm opening the phone. Yeah. Wordle is right there. Some messages are right there. So that's the key. So it's like, this is now my current, we're hitting on it right now. This is my current, how do I get maybe the video off my phone? How do I maybe I buy a little crib cam that's just its own thing, and it's not on my phone. Is that what you have? Yeah. I think that's a real, separate church and state. I think it's hard to have. I think it's great to have everything on a phone, and also sometimes terrible to have everything.
Totally. Yeah, I could see where maybe you have a babysitter. Right. And so you can have access to your phone where you're watching the kiddo. But yeah, that monitor, we had a monitor that was just, and that was a game changer for us.
Right. Yeah. It's just its own thing. It's its own separate thing. And because it's true. It's because otherwise I have to just be more disciplined about not opening up certain apps. And that might be it too. Maybe it's I delete some apps off my phone. Maybe it's I sign out of my email so that when I start to check my email, I already see I have to sign in, and it's creating more steps for me. Sometimes gives me more opportunities to be like, no, I don't need to check this right now. Because the more steps I have to go to do something, it's literally more moments where I have to tell myself, oh, I don't need to do this right now. So the more obstacles I can create. I'm just a human being who will click on anything, like anyone clicks on anything.
Sure. Then you just go down the rabbit hole.
And you're all of a sudden now on YouTube watching SNL sketches for like the next 2 hours.
What is it like being a dad in LA where I remember we had friends, the Trevinos, who were like the only people who had kids. And now, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Has it changed? I mean, do you notice anything different? I know it's only been 7 months, but just curious.
You're saying, do I have more friends with kids or less friends with kids?
Yeah. I know when I had kids, I didn't realize it till maybe a year later, but I was like, all of my single friends were almost entirely gone. Yeah. Just because.
We were, I feel like, some of the last to have kids. So we only have 2 proper couple friends who don't have kids.
Gotcha.
Maybe 3.
So like now you're entering into the fold of like,
everyone's like, finally, you guys had kids. So, but it's fun now because now and what's great, I didn't mind hanging around my friends' kids, but I am much more, I'm sure you feel the same. I am much more open to hanging out with other friends and kids by having a kid. If something opens up inside of you where you're like, oh yeah, kids are cool because now you have a kid. It's just, it's cool that way. And I appreciate that because I also don't love hanging around my friends with their kids, and I'm just like, well, I'm just sort of making do. You know what I mean? Like I don't really enjoy them a ton, but I don't mind being there. But a part of me always wished I would enjoy. I wish I would enjoy being a bit of an uncle a little bit more. But now having my own kid, I'm actually more inclined to like mess around and play with their kids because I have a kid and I'm in the, it kind of is giving me the tools to be like, oh, I have like dad tools now. So it's like, I get it. And it's nice because the reality is almost all my friends have kids. So, hey, this works out, you know.
Have you noticed that the concept of, or your idea of success has changed over the years being a dad to where it's now, and you kind of mentioned this at the very beginning, but it's this idea of like, what does it look like to be a successful father and husband and a brilliant actor such as yourself? Like, has your idea of success at all changed, or has it just become more robust?
Well, thank you for the compliments. I'm figuring that out. I'm in it right now. I don't think, again, we've sort of been in a survivalist mentality for a while, and I still think we're getting out of it right now.
Gotcha.
We're not fully there yet. Like we're crawling out, and it's nice to see the world, and everyone seems okay. Yeah. I'm in Idaho where, you know, people are just, you know, it's the Wild West. No, it's not the Wild West. But you know what I'm saying? It's very different. Your football turf is blue.
It's crazy, right?
It's crazy.
It's wild. It's wild.
No, I love Boise. I'm now trying to figure out, what does that look like to be like a good dad husband, a good, a good father. You know, right now I've been so father focused and just taking care of her that I'm like, okay, can I start working on like career stuff again? And I have been doing stuff like I finally made a VO reel and got a commercial voiceover agent. And so that's been super fun. And I'm going out for some like really awesome, fun VO projects. And I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and it's great. And I have a little booth I kind of made in my house, and I'm laying down stuff for video games and animation and commercials, and it's like, cool, this is like a different actor muscle I haven't used, and it's helping out a lot of other things too, and it's great. And so that's been fun. But yeah, it's all I think that's like check in with me in a year, and then hopefully once I have right now I feel like I'm barely on the training wheels still of what this dad thing is, that I don't really have that set yet. I feel like I'll have to start asking you for your advice of like, you know,
sure.
You already have 2 under the belt, you know, and it does change, right? Like for you, may I ask the same for you? Like was there a moment for you that you were like, okay, I feel this dad rhythm. And now I feel like I can get the dad rhythm into my career rhythm. When did that happen for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. It came right after, not too long after my son was born. I'd gotten myself in like the best shape of my life and mentally focused. And then what's interesting is like my daughter came and a whole other rhythm happened. But as far as like my definition of success, what ended up happening for me is at first it was faith, and then family, and then it was the other things. And it's kind of like that. There's a scripture that says, seek first the kingdom and his righteousness, and all like everything else will follow. So for me, it was like alignment, putting first things first. And I realized that I was hungry for something else. There was moments where I was like, I wanted my name on in lights or whatever. What's wild is since my alignment changed, doors opened up for me faster than I could have ever tried to conjure myself. So I think that's really it. Talking about kind of wrapping all of this up with the idea of story, we might want to try to write our own story, but there's something about connecting to the greatest storyteller of all time, the creator of the universe, that allows, if you invite him into your life, I believe that God basically ends up saying, now let's write something together. And don't worry about the potholes. Don't worry about the rough moments, because I make the crooked path straight. And I have a plan for you. And even though it's tough or it's difficult, hey, it's not going to be easy, but you're going to get strong. And people are going to learn from you.
And those are going to be the parts of the story that people are going to connect to the most.
100%.
we are meeting so many parents now who have been through sort of the ringer like we did and had a premature child and any needs or high needs at moments. And so we're more interested in sitting down with them. Sarah and I are actively looking for families and friends who have had a preemie, and because they have stories that we can connect with.
Right. Yeah.
It's more helpful for us and interesting to us to hear their gone through it and getting out of it in a beautiful way stories versus us talking to our friends who did not have a preemie. And it's just a different story. And so it's like, that's why we seek out those stories, you know?
Yeah.
And we're thankful for that they exist, because if we didn't have those people to seek out, then, you know, when we wouldn't be able to do it. Can I also share one thing? Because I know there's a lot of improv.
Yeah.
There was one show I once saw. I wanted to share this. There's just no segue, so I'm just throwing it in there. There was a show I once saw, an improv show, where a piece. It was like a really beautiful show. It was at one of the nicest theaters I've ever seen improv done at, in Santa Monica here in Los Angeles, and it was like a holiday special, and they had a set, and it was about like this sort of improvised holiday musical variety show, like you would see Bing Crosby do.
Nice.
And it was really well done. You would have really enjoyed it, Sean. It was like a really beautiful show. And a piece of the set fell down on one of the actors on stage.
Oh, wow.
And she was okay, but it was a scary moment.
Yeah.
And they actually had to like take her off for a second. She came back and she was fine. But all of them kept going. And they even some actor found a hard hat in the back and put it on and was like, oh, this is what we're all wearing now tonight. He's like the butler in the show. And they all made a joke, and they used it, and they said, everything's falling apart. This is the last show. So they made it into the best part of the show.
Yeah.
Because they were smart and they didn't just run away from it. And all of a sudden now everyone really laughed and really got into it because all the actors yes-anded that the set was falling apart, and they made it be like, oh no, this must be this whole house is falling apart. This is the last show we're doing. And they really yes-anded that moment. And it was that's the only thing I remember. It was a perfectly fine show otherwise, but that was easily the highlight, and is a life lesson for me to this day, not only when I do my improv shows, but also just life, where it's like we could let a piece of the set fall on us and ruin our day, or this could be the very thing that is the most memorable part of our life. And I really thought they handled it so well, and it was very inspiring.
I love that. David, thank you for sharing that story, and thank you for being on the podcast with me. I could go on and on with you, and we're gonna have to connect again.
Yeah, we'll do it again.
I love it.
I know where you live.
You do. It's true. So for those of you who are watching, again, David, thank you so much. David Magidoff, check him out. This guy is there any place that people can follow you besides Instagram that you want to?
Yeah, just go to my it's just my name at Instagram, DavidMagidoff.
Love it.
And I do live shows in Los Angeles. If you want to come check them out, they're free. And of course, on the televisions. And thank you so much for having me, Sean.
Oh, so good to have you. And just remember, when life seems to be falling all around you, that if you call it out and step into it, you might just have lived a story that will affect everyone who hears you. So, right on. Thanks, David. We'll see you next time.
Bye, Sean.
See you, buddy.